about 2 weeks since I switched to the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and well, it's great. You know, when you spend $1,300 on a smartphone, you pretty much expect that it's gonna be the best of the best, and if it's not, well then, it's not worth $1,300, and I'm happy to say that it is, in fact, the best of the best, at least in my opinion. Now, if this is your first time to one of my practical reviews, essentially what that means is that this is not a super technical review where I'm gonna go through different performance numbers and deep dive into pixel peeping with camera comparisons and things like that. This is really just my personal experience using the device and my opinions of what I think about it. And you know, I'm not gonna cover every single aspect of the phone, but kind of just tell you what I thought. Now, coming from the Galaxy S23 Ultra, I had named that as my favorite phone of 2023. So of course, when you upgrade that to the next model, I would say that the S24 Ultra is now my favorite Android phone in the world. And this phone is really just a top-notch experience through pretty much every aspect of the device. So let's just go through each category of what this device has to offer, and I'll explain why it's top-notch. So first up, we have the physical design, and you know, this is very similar to the Galaxy S23 Ultra. However, I do think they made some good refinements that do just help it feel like a very premium phone. So we of course do now have titanium rails, which that in itself might not be like a massive revolutionary change, but what I do like about it is that the rails have a matte finish. Like I'm a sucker for matte finishes, so when you throw a matte finish on the rails and then kind of a matte finish on the back of the phone, it just, yeah, I just really like it. And then of course they also flattened out the screen this year, which I wasn't sure how I was gonna think about that because I've actually been a fan in the past of curved edges on displays. I know a lot of people don't like curved edges, but I was somebody who was kind of a fan. But what this phone made me realize is, you know, back in the day with like maybe the Galaxy S8, Galaxy S9, whenever we had kind of thicker bezels on the phone, I think having that waterfalled edge, the curved edges, helped it feel like the edges weren't as thick as they actually were. But now that we actually do have thin bezels, I think it's kind of nice to just not try to hide them, but to just appreciate them for what they are. And I think especially having these fully uniform bezels now, we don't have like a little chin at the bottom anymore. I think that definitely helps with that, and it just looks really nice. And so with all of that said, I would say that the design of the S24 Ultra is top notch. Okay, next up we have the screen, but like the actual display. And you know, Samsung's known for making very good displays, and they just keep making it better. And so of course they increased the overall brightness compared to last year, which is awesome. But I think the thing that people are noticing more, and this is actually kind of crazy, is how it's now anti-reflective. And you know, a lot of times when companies announce like improved things with their devices, it'll be like an incremental change, like, oh, it's 10% better than last year. It's just a little bit better. But this is kind of significant. Like if I show you the S24 Ultra in a group of other devices, you can clearly see which one is the S24 Ultra because that anti-reflective coating or anti-reflective display technology, whatever it is, it's working. I had even posted this photo on Twitter where I was actually just comparing the brightness between the S23 Ultra and the S24 Ultra, but what most people were commenting about in the replies to that were how they noticed how much more the S24 Ultra was blocking out reflection. And then of course all of this combined with a 1440p 120 Hz Super AMOLED display, like it's just a great display, and again, it's top notch. Then we have the actual power or performance of the device. And you know, this one's kind of interesting because in my actual like daily usage, it doesn't really feel any better than my S23 Ultra, which may sound like a bad thing, but it's not really, because the S23 Ultra was already so good. Like I didn't have any complaints as far as performance goes with the S23 Ultra. It just felt smooth as could be, and it still feels smooth as can be with the S24 Ultra. So yes, we do now have the new processor, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, so it is, you know, gonna be more powerful. It's gonna be faster, I guess, but in day-to-day usage, it just still feels great, or top notch. Now, of course, what the processor also has a hand in is efficiency as far as battery life goes. And I am happy to say that the battery life on this phone is great. Now, I've been using the phone at 1440p, 120 hertz, and I do also tend to have it pretty bright during my usage. And I've been getting like 7 to 8 hours of screen on time, which of course is really good. Now, back when I was using my S23 Ultra, I was using that one at 1080p. So I don't have like an exact comparison, but I do feel like my battery life is pretty similar to what I was getting on the S23 Ultra. So I don't know if there's gonna be like a massive improvement there, but it was great on the S23 Ultra. It's still great on the S24 Ultra, or I guess you could say it's top notch. And then also kind of having to do with efficiency is cooling. And this phone does have an updated vapor chamber for better cooling. And you know, I didn't really feel like the S23 Ultra got hot. The cooling was pretty dang good, I think, and I think it still is, because this phone doesn't get hot either, which is great. Now, of course, one of the things that's gonna have the biggest effect on your overall experience with a phone is the software. And of course, this is a very subjective thing, but I mean, Samsung software is my personal favorite, and so yeah, for me, that's top notch. Now, of course, this phone is running One UI 6.1 on Android 14, which One UI 6 is not something that's brand new to this device, although it is very recent, and it is on this device. And I will say, I like it. I do think it's a nice updated design that just feels more modern, I guess you could say. I think it's specifically noticeable in the quick settings menu, as when you bring that down, everything's organized very nicely and looks just really nicely laid out and easy to look at. And so yeah, I just think it's a nice looking software, and it also is very snappy and responsive, which is important to me as a user who likes to flip through all of my phone's navigation very quickly. I like when a phone can be super responsive with that. Now, we can't talk about software without bringing up Samsung's new Galaxy AI, because of course, this is pretty much the new thing that is new with this device, right? And I think a lot of people were kind of skeptical when Samsung was announcing and teasing Galaxy AI, because literally every company nowadays is announcing that they have AI, and it's kind of like, all right, whatever, like, is it actually gonna be something cool, or are you just throwing ChatGPT into your product, But I am glad to say a lot of what Samsung has done here with their AI is actually legitimately useful and legitimately impressive. So first of all, you've probably seen Circle to Search. It's just a very easy, smart, intuitive, quick way to search for anything at any time. And the amazing thing about it is that it's totally universal, so it'll work no matter where you are in your phone. So say you're just scrolling on YouTube and you're watching a video and you see somebody wearing a hat and you like it and you want to search for it. Well, you can just hold down the bottom middle of your screen and then Circle to Search that hat and get results right away. And of course, similar things have existed before, like Google Lens and stuff, but this just makes it quicker and easier and more accessible, and it's just a really smart implementation, and I really like it. And then of course, we have AI photo editing, which they low-key copied the Pixel with this, the Pixel's magic editor. We now have Galaxy AI, and it has a Galaxy AI button that's very similarly placed to Pixel's magic editor button, and it can do very similar things. So yeah, you can now circle something and move it in an image, and it'll use generative fill to fill the gaps of the spot that's now missing. You can even just erase things like the Pixel's magic editor, and it's not perfect, but it is cool, and I'm sure it will improve over time. But the one AI thing that really impressed me was the AI slow-mo, because it can literally just generate slow-mo out of video that is not slow-mo. And so it basically just adds frames in between your actual frames to fill in the gaps, and then it uses those extra frames to create a slow motion clip. And again, it's not always perfect. Sometimes it can look a little weird, but when it works, it's very impressive. Especially, you can actually get a live preview of it just by watching a video in your gallery and then holding down on the screen, and it'll just generate that slow motion in real time, which is, it's just super cool. And so we've got top-notch design, we've got top-notch screen, top-notch efficiency and battery life, top-notch software, but what about the cameras? Now, I'm not gonna lie, the overall camera experience is gonna be pretty similar to last year's S23 Ultra, except for one difference. and that is the new 5x telephoto lens. And you know, this was something that was kind of controversial because of course last year we had 10x optical zoom, but now we only have 5x, which sounds really weird. But of course this year it is now 50 megapixels as opposed to 10 megapixels from last year. So it does kind of just cancel each other out. Kind of. Now I will say, when you do zoom in all the way to 100 times, I do think actually the S23 Ultra is still more detailed, not by like a vast margin, but if you look at it, I feel like last year, it's a little bit more detailed. But I think the trade-off you get is definitely worth it because of course, between 5x zoom and up to 9.9x zoom, it's gonna be better than it ever was before. But what is also very cool and what I really like is how you can now take really cool looking portrait photos. Because when we had the 10x lens, you couldn't really take good portrait photos with that. It's kind of too zoomed in, and I don't even think the portrait mode would let you take like actual, you know, portrait mode photos with that 10x lens. But now with the 5x lens, you can take portrait mode photos with it or just non-portrait mode photos with it, and the pictures look really cool. But of course, just besides the new telephoto lens, we do still have our 200 megapixel sensor, we still have our ultra wide, we still have our 3x telephoto lens, and overall just a pretty top-notch camera system. Now of course it's not perfect, there could still definitely be improvements as far as like the smoothness of zooming between your different lenses. Of course, social media optimization is still not perfect, so hopefully we'll get there one day. Oh, and then another thing with the camera, and this is actually really great, but they actually improved the shutter lag, because if you remember with previous Samsung phones, whenever you would tap to take a photo, sometimes there would be a slight delay before it actually, you know, shuttered, or however you say that, and took the photo. But now with this year, you can pretty much just snap away and tap away and take photos without much of a delay, which is awesome. Although one thing that I will say that I noticed with the camera is I got more motion blur than I was expecting. Now I will say I noticed this mostly when we were on a train. We were like testing the phone on a train, and of course a train moves, and that's gonna probably cause a little bit of motion blur. But I was just, you know, trying to take photos and they kept coming out just a little bit soft, a little bit blurry, and but yeah, so you might just want to make sure you're still when you're taking your photos. But anyways, with all of that said, my conclusion is that yes, the Galaxy S24 Ultra is a top-notch device. Like I said, it is my favorite device in the world currently, although who knows? Maybe somebody could change my mind. Now, if you are somebody who's wondering if it's worth it to switch from the S23 Ultra to the S24 Ultra, I'm gonna be really honest, probably not. It's probably not worth it because, I mean, the S23 Ultra is also a top-notch phone, and you know, honestly, the overall general smartphone experience, from, you know, the performance to the screen to the battery life, it's all gonna be fairly similar to last year, although of course we do have some cool updates, some cool new features. But is it worth spending $1,300 to upgrade your phone? Probably not. Maybe if you can get like a really good trade-in deal, or maybe just like a free upgrade or something like that. But I mean, definitely if you're someone who's rocking like a Galaxy S20 Ultra, oh yeah, I would definitely consider upgrading. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any more questions about this phone. Like, I know I didn't cover everything about the device, but again, I love it, and I will be reading the comments and see if you guys have any questions. So let me know. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.